to Leaders in the Arena. My name is Jenny Whitener, and I'm the Executive Director of the Brock Barnes Center for Leadership. Leaders in the Arena is about real stories, hard-earned insights, and practical guidance from leaders doing the work of leadership in the arena. Today at Brock Barnes, we're focused on building and equipping leaders to faithfully serve organizations and communities in Christ's work of making all things new. We do that through four capabilities: our student leadership programs, our innovation and impact efforts, and then our Institute for Executive Education, and then, of course, our Wisdom and Insight series, which brings me to today's program and our special guest. We're excited to welcome today Rodger Piersant, who is the co-founder of the Brock Center and very well known in our region for designing, leading, and architecting flagship leadership programs here in our community. Welcome, Rodger.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
You know, you come from a very I guess, a rich perspective, right? Because your journey, your personal journey has been not only in leadership development, but also in terms of really leading as a CEO in the business sector for many years in a very successful enterprise. Could you, just before we get into today's program, do us the pleasure of hearing a bit about your own personal leadership journey and share with the audience a bit about your leadership background?
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm the youngest of three from Baltimore, Maryland. My parents, both my mom and dad, were both leaders in their enterprises. My brother and I thought that by some osmosis or DNA, we should lead as well. I went to work in hospitals at 16 years old, worked every night and weekends while I went to school. Went to college. I was in my third year of college, made a terrible mistake by dropping to a part-time student during the Vietnam War era. And so Uncle Sam invited me to be a combatant. And I joined the Navy, went into a special detachment of combat Navy, graduated from the Navy, moved to Fort Lauderdale. Just decided that I'm going down there. So I just left Fort Lauderdale, went to work.
Great place to go, by the way. I mean, take me with you.
That's right. So I thought that my friend was down there working. He said, just come on. So I packed everything in my car, told my mom and dad I was leaving for just a few weeks. I never came home. You know how that is. And so went down there, went to work, and they gave me a very significant job at hospital. With just 3 years of college, it was way over my head based on what I should have had for my education. But because of my military background and some things that I did, they gave me a responsible job at hospital. I was there for about 4 years, met my bride, who I've been married to for 50 years now, and which is the most successful part of my life. All the rest of it had its ups and downs, but I've had a 50-year great marriage with my bride, Suzanne. And I was transferred. I was invited to work for a hospital corporation. I got transferred to Park Ridge Hospital in Chattanooga in 1976. So that's a few years ago. And then very quickly, I was transferred 2 years later to a hospital in Chicago. We decided not to go. We bought our first businesses in Chattanooga, and that's when it began. So of my 50 years of executive work, I have been a CEO 46 of those years, from small cap companies where I was the principal owner to medium cap businesses where I still remained the principal owner but was the CEO. And then I spent about 16 years in nonprofit work as a CEO. So I have a kind of a rich, eclectic, adventurous kind of thing from service businesses to nonprofit ministry and work, and then a manufacturing company for my last 21 years, which was quite a shift from the other things that I had done. So in 2019, my younger partners decided it was a good time to buy me out, and I thought it was a good time to be bought out, and they're still running our company wonderfully, and we're good friends, and I have been enjoying other things since then.
What a great story. And, you know, I think we have a number of constituents that listen to Leaders in the Arena. They're business professionals and nonprofit, but also students. And I hope that they will be inspired by that story that you just told, because I think oftentimes students put pressure on themselves that they must declare
No.
their career journey and it's going to look like this. It's going to be in a box and they'll stay there
Mm,
forever. And the
mm,
great thing that you talked about is how you had these multiple experiences, different cities, different industries, then going into like your an entrepreneurial venture, then going into nonprofit ventures, and then
mm,
now,
mm,
co-founder of the Brock Center. So, I mean, I hope they will be inspired to know that the Lord will open doors and
yeah,
use their talents in many ways. Just they
mm,
have to trust and be open to taking those opportunities and doing a great job with it, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
but I know that today we want to talk about leadership beyond self, but I want to also let the audience hear a bit about the Brock Center. So, would you also introduce your leadership programming series and the great work that you're doing to build leaders in our region?
Oh, yes, thanks, Jenny. I met Frank Brock very early in my career. If there was a moment where you have your pinnacle successes, I was 34, and maybe that was maybe my high point in some successes that I had. But we had a notable business, and from 1977 till 1984. And by that, I was invited into some circles. I knew most of the leaders of Chattanooga. Frank Brock was one of those leaders who he was only 10 years my senior, but his wisdom and his faith were so much more advanced than my own. And he took me under his wing when I was actually a 33-year-old. And here I'm 75. So here we have a few years together. Frank and I've met many, many times over the years, and we started discussing things about how Chattanooga's community is different than other communities. We're not just business people, but our business leaks out into the community in ways of service and civic service, and so we decided that we try to capture that in a bottle. We invited Don Soderquist to come to town in 2015. He was the vice chairman of Walmart. He and Sam Walton built Walmart together. Um, Don spent a lot of time with us and then looked at our city and said, "Boy, you're different. You're different than Nashville, Knoxville, Atlanta." He said, you should go deep with some of your executives." And so Frank and I decided, we pulled in one of your professors, Scott Quattro, to give us a little bit of some kind of reference for how we should spend time with executives. And we took our first 10 executives, spent 10 months with them. We mentored them. We took senior leaders that have great experience in this community to teach these younger C-suite executives how to have a great culture. And here we are, 12 years later. We've trained 120 um, senior executives over these 12 years, 10 months at a time. They've become great friends. I just did 40 of those who were in secondary seats are now CEOs of their companies in Chattanooga. And they're greatly quietly influencing the texture and the nature of our life and our livability in Chattanooga. And because they are people first and EQ over IQ. So that's what we've done. We're a little bit different in our leadership culture. We teach culture instead of just leadership. These folks have already been good at management and they've moved up through the ranks. But we decided we'd concentrate on how to build a great culture, and that's what we've done.
Fantastic. Well, I know the program has quite a reputation for success, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
And I think, in terms of stewardship, thank you, right? Thank you for channeling
Mm,
all that capability that you have in building those flagship leadership programs and
mm,
making our community better through other leaders. So that's a pretty amazing story. Today, we want to focus a little bit around some insights that I think you personally have based on this journey. And it's what
mm.
I call leadership beyond self. And so I wanted to kind of first ask you to explore something with me that, how leadership goes beyond self-interest toward investing in people, purpose, and community flourishing. A lot of your own personal track record that you just described was that. And I
Yeah.
think so often leaders look at themselves and say, what is my purpose for leadership? What will I be known for in
Mm,
leadership? And so
mm,
talk a little bit about how you've seen leaders take that bigger job, really the broader perspective of leadership beyond self-interest?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great question to explore, and I think there is this kind of arc that we all go through as leaders when we're young. We're very ambitious, and it's all about us and what we should do and how we should get where we're going. I had the added benefit of coming to faith early in my career, and I was 31 years old, thanks again to Frank and others. And it started to inform my management and my leadership style, that it wasn't all about me. And I had a very interesting, my earliest days, I had some of the fathers of servant leadership out of Downers Grove, Illinois, become my mentors. Now, I wasn't much of a believer at that point, but they were. And in fact, they've started the C.S. Lewis Library at Wheaton College, and these guys were some elevation way above who I was. But they were teaching that others are more important than yourself in leadership. And so it maybe caught. And I think our young leaders, we get in our jobs and then we fight for our next position. We're trying to get to the next level. And so it's all about us. And but if we try to teach even young leaders that if you start looking past yourself to other people, all ships will rise on that tide. And I think that happened with me. I had good people who would get in my grill and tell me that I was, too much about me. And I had people who would confront me in ways that were important and constructive. And somewhere along the lines, I really just inculcated in my own leadership that, okay, it's just not about me. It's about those I serve and those in my organization. And so I think that it's a learned behavior. It's a faith-connected behavior. If you don't have faith, you can still learn to do it, but faith cements the idea of why you're doing it, right? And I think that's what's happened in my life and what allowed us to be a little different over the course of our 50 years of leadership. In my various companies, I've tried to do exactly those things. And I tried not to be too rote about it and too programmed about it. I tried to be natural about it and let our people flourish around me. And it's paid great dividends. Every place I've been, the people who have followed behind me have done a better job than I did and did a better job, which wasn't hard to do. But they succeeded in doing a much better job leading the organizations that I was able to found and get going. And I'm proud of that. I love it. I get around them and think, now there is a person who's great at what they do. And I even surprise myself. I'm not the most selfless guy in the world. None of us are. And, I have plenty of proof that I'm not. But there's a certain selflessness that happens if you continue to do it. And it's certainly in leadership, if you learn how to do it, it pays so many greater dividends than just being a leader that's driving on to be the best that he or she can be. So
that's a good point. I love this story and this insight that you're sharing around what I'll call the leadership. I don't know if you would call it a transition, or I almost think of it as like coming up on a plane.
Yes, it
In
is.
the early stage of growing as a leader, it's really about performance. And oftentimes you're feeling this pressure of
Yes.
personal performance, and you're trying to build skills, build perspective, accomplish, demonstrate your abilities, and that kind of thing. And it really is in these very early days, often about your proficiency, about your competence. But then quickly you start to learn that it's really about the team, right? It's
That's
really
right.
about
That's
the
right.
others, because you'll turn around and look and like there's no one there. And I remember Dr. Mark Mendenhall, who was over at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. I remember hearing him do a lecture one day, and he kept talking about, are you worthy of followership? And I was like, right, yes, I need to be thinking like that, right? But it's true. I mean, I think that is a natural pattern for high performing leaders, that in the early stage, it's around this personal performance, but quickly you get this awakening
That's right.
that it has to be about others and it has to be around engaging with them, empowering them,
Mm.
stewarding that team, and helping them really achieve, right? You are that conduit. You are
Yeah.
the one that's enabling them to lead.
And to
And
your point, I do that same. I tell people from 20 to 40, it's all performance. 40 to 60, it's performance and wisdom. And after 60, it's just all wisdom. And that's where you're at.
that's right.
And
That's
and that's been kind of my
right.
three
Stages.
the way to categorize what I
That's right.
think
I
you and I
do.
are talking about.
I was going to say, I see a book coming, Roger. That's got to be next. Three stages. I can see
That's
that
right.
coming. Well,
That's right.
a big part, I know this because I know a little bit about the programming that you all do at the Brock Center, but
Mm,
a big part of developing leaders that you all have designed in your program is really including mentorship.
yes, it is.
And even in those three stages you just described, that first awakening, once you get from personal performance into
Mhm.
leading teams, sometimes you need that advisory. You need that other
Mhm.
more senior person pouring into you. So, can you talk a little bit about effective mentoring, like the relationships that you need to look for in an effective mentoring relationship, how to be intentional with that, and how it helps leaders develop?
Sure. Thank you. And I think that clearly, and maybe the most important thing about us as leaders and young leaders and older leaders is that we need one another. And the older leaders who do not take the time to stop and build into a younger leader's life will miss some of the greatest blessings and benefits of life. And one of the things I think is important as a mentor is that you're not in some authority position. You're in a relationship with someone. And in all of our mentors, we tell them, let them teach you as much as you teach them. And you've been there, you've heard where they are, where they're going. You've done that yourself. But be careful to just be in relationship with them. And I think we become friends with people at all stages and levels. And I have this trail of 30 or 40 or 50 young executives who are my buddies now. And it's nice to have people that are 20 years younger than you because when you start to fail, they're there to help you, right? So there's all there's geriatric benefits to this as well. But I think when we tell all of our mentors and we've taught our mentors to not be important, more important than the person you're mentoring, that their importance and their value is equal to yours, and you should treat them as it being greater than yours. And they're precious and they're treasures, and you're helping them become whatever they're becoming. And I think that it's helped us fashion how we mentor our people, and it's become almost more important than the classes we teach. In fact, just as a personal example, I'm mentoring a gentleman now who is a general manager in a manufacturing company, and he's my mentor in the current Brock class, the 10 project class. And he's called me 3 times in the last 2 days on matters that are not necessarily related to the work that he's doing, but they're family matters and there's things that are going on because we've become friends. And I cherish that. I mean, it's like, wow. And we say, well, we don't have time to do that. I don't have time to mentor. Yes, you do. And you make time, you set your calendar, you sit with these people, and they realize that you're giving up time and that sacrifice, they see it greater than you see it. So it's an important thing. So that's how we have tried to do the Brock, all the Brock work that we do.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that you all are Brock Barnes because we're sister organizations.
Yeah.
And I know what you all try to do and how you do it. And I think we're really in lockstep with one another about doing this thing correctly with value and depth
Mhm.
and not just quantity. We do quality, and that's
Right.
important to us.
It is. And I think the part that I'm hearing you call out particularly is that there's great value in entering into a mentoring relationship, probably beyond words,
Yeah.
if you do that right, and
Hmm.
to treasure that opportunity to make the time for it. I heard you talk about the fact that you might be sharing wisdom, but most importantly, you're sharing friendship.
Hmm.
And, you know, oftentimes one of the issues that we know is important and really awakening new ways to lead is this element of trust. Like, how do I get this trustful relationship to bounce my concerns off of someone, to take a scenario and say, have you seen this play out? Give me some feedback. And having that friendship basis, we don't think about it that often,
Right.
gives us the basis of trust to be vulnerable, to be open, and to know that we can confide in someone in a trustworthy way, that it's what we just talked about. It's not going to show up on a social media post, you know, or like it's not going to come back around at a cocktail party or at a business event that my boss has heard about it. That when I hear you talk about the aspects of friendship, I know what's behind that. It's not just being friendly.
No.
It's around the true spirit of integrity-based friendship.
It is.
And when that happens, you've got this long-standing relationship. The senior managing partner at Ernst & Young who brought me in to Ernst & Young's name is Don Sweeney. He's 85 now and been retired for years. He still calls me every year and he's like, Jenny, you know, he's still mentoring me. And that's not based on a business relationship. That's based on genuine friendship that as we've matured in our relationship has become one of the most valuable aspects. And I hear what you're talking about, that we have to open our mind into mentoring to go deeper. And I think that's one of the successes that you guys have at the Brock Center, is that you encourage that, you invite it, and you expect it.
But our mission, I mean, our mission statement is mentoring the current and next generation of business leaders for the good of their associates, their company, and their entire community. So our thing is like we're just holistic with it, and building trust is, to your point, Jenny, is and it's hard in this day and age to build trust. We are not a trustworthy people. We're very broken in lots of ways, and so this is a sacred trust. Speaking of trust, it's a sacred trust with us to mentor well and to make these folks see that we're really their advocate and we're really their friend. And I have just so many that I can't begin to tell you. I have so many examples of how that has borne fruit in my life over the course of, especially the last 25 years. And as I got into my 50s and I was at a place where what I had to say seemed to have more value than what I might have said when I was 30 or 40, which I thought I was more important then. And but you know, my litany of both failures and successes were something to actually talk about when I was in my 50s and 60s. But I go back to my 50s and the last 25 years, I'm just overwhelmed with how wonderful some of my friendships have become with some of these young leaders. And they're running some of the most important companies in Chattanooga. And they call me up and say, hey, my wife's is pregnant, you know, and it's like, you know, and it's not like, you know, hey, we just had a new merger or acquisition. They say, you know, my wife is expecting, hey, you know, and there's something that's just so rich about that has made our life just a lot richer. So,
you know, even when I reflect on what you're describing there, I think sometimes when people are new at mentoring, they think they're there to share only wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there is wisdom that comes from experience, 100%. There's also wisdom that comes from being youthful, right? Especially in today's environment, more so than ever. But I hear that some of what you're talking about is this component of listening.
Yeah.
That through that aspect of friendship that you're talking about, that mutual respect, that you're saying it could be just as important or maybe more important to be the person who can listen and then respond. So it's not all about telling, you know, it's all, let me tell you about how to do this or how to do that. It's first being in the friendship environment, having that trust, having that vulnerability, and being there to first listen. And sometimes it's just that. You know, sometimes it's wisdom sharing as well. Excuse me, but I think that's important, and something from your story that you just told that I think is important for us to acknowledge.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Let's continue on in this journey around looking at leadership beyond self. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about values
Mm,
and valued centered leadership and
mm,
how that is a different anchor for
mm,
how leaders perform, how they organize themselves, how they show up. And then what contributes, how that values-based leadership contributes to lasting community and organizational health. Talk about that and your experience there in terms
mm.
of character-based leadership and its impact.
Sure. Thank you. Well, again, I'm no expert. I think all of my experiences is I tell people I'm a 50-year journeyman. They say you've been doing this so long. I said no. Most of my life has been I've been a lifelong learner. I think I don't have all these answers, and I want to be careful to say that there's people that might hear this, may not hear this, but hear this that are so much more advanced in some of the things that they know how to do than I do. But here's to me, the beginning of character for us. If you're a faith person, if you believe in providence of God, there's this immediate um, ticket to entry is humility, and it's the essence, it's the foundation of all of our performance. We're never the smartest people in the room. We're never guaranteed the next future success or the next big chance opportunity for our jobs. We live by day. Um, this is the day we've been given. This is the daily bread or the daily portion we've asked for. We ask the creator of the universe for our daily portion. And then we think ahead by James says, we'll go to this city and that city and do this work and that work. But the truth is that we don't even know if we have it tomorrow, right? So this is a mind shift. And if for people who are believers and who are leaders, have an obligation at the very basic level to live humbly. And living in a humble state, you then become a learner. You take every opportunity with gratefulness. You value the people that are around you. You value the opportunities that come to you. You value the failures because you look at the failures as something that says, well, I can make something from this and I can grow from this. But so as a leader, we try to, and I think I've tried to in my life, incorporate humility. You can't say I'm a humble guy. You just that doesn't work. But it is true that if you practice humility and it becomes a true part of who you are, then you are open to what you can do, not for what you think you're the best at. And I think that we teach it is the basics of the 10 project is learning who you are, learning your strengths, but learning your weaknesses and being able to admit your vulnerabilities and be humble about them so that your team can actually see you for who you really are. And back to your very early point, Jenny, trust in leadership is everything. And it's the beginning of a great culture, and it's the failure of cultures. It's the success and the failure of cultures. Just as a very short sidebar, I know of a company right now who's going through a very difficult time. Its leader has been a wonderful guy. His people have gone without a paycheck for 5 weeks, and they won't leave him because they believe in who he is and what they stand for. Now, that is the difference between a humble leader and a guy who's just all out for himself, right? And so I think that the very basics of great leadership is humility. It's the good to great difference. It's the level 4 manager to the level 5 manager. It's that when you leave, people behind you want to emulate you and do a better job than you did. And instead of when you're a level 4, when you leave, everybody said, I'm glad they're gone and I'm going to do it this way. And that is a difference that I'm sure I can't define very well, but I know it when I see it. And I have a taste and smell sensory that says, okay, there's a sixth sense on that. This person is the right leader because they have a humility about them that's going to be the right chemistry for their company. So we
Right.
build great cultures out of humility. And if you believe in Christ, then it is a full circle. It's
Right.
like why you do it. It's the real reason why you do it, not some manipulative way of getting people to do things. It is the right reason for why we do it.
I 100% agree with you. I think, what we learn as Christians by really studying the Word and seeing Christ in his stories and all of his wisdom is that he was humble and he calls us to be humble.
Oh, it
And
does.
then you take it further and you look at great successful leaders, and they also are quite humble and
They
they
are.
really pull on the capabilities and experiences of their teams. And in fact, what I've heard recently about the scale and pace of the evolution of knowledge and technology and capability, there's no one leader who can master everything at the pace and scale that it's evolving today. You look at
Absolutely.
the thought leader Adam Grant with his book Think Again, and he
Yeah.
tells us as leaders that we have to continually think like scientists. What's
Mm,
the hypothesis? What might be? Posing great questions to our teams, inviting others to pour in. And
mm,
that's exactly the environment we're in today. And I loved how you started off by saying being a lifelong learner. I've
mm.
seen also going back to the student realm, some students will come to me and they'll say, well, I've got this opportunity. It sounds like the most boring job ever. I'm like, you have to go at this new opportunity saying, what can I learn?
Uh,
How will it help me grow?
mm,
Who can I learn from in that
mm,
environment? So
mm,
if you take each of those opportunities as a gift, humbly,
mm.
and then pull that learning to you, like how much richer life will be for you. And then you take that learning to the next level and then to the next level, and continue your leadership journey.
Yeah, that's right, Jenny.
Well,
I could,
I know something that we're experimenting with. They're talking about us teaming up on an executive roundtable, and I'm really excited about it.
yep,
We don't have a
sure.
date set for it, but the Brock Barnes Center for Leadership, in partnership with the Brock Center, looking to host kind of an executive roundtable where students can come together and meet experienced professionals. And who knows, over dinner, there might be some blooming of mentoring relationships that could
Would that
come
be,
about.
that would do my heart so good. I love that.
No, that'd be great.
I do.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Rodger. Thank
Thanks, Jenny.
you for all that you do
Yeah.
for leadership in our community and
Mm.
for nurturing the next generation. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.